Today we are discussing Starfish, a 2019 sci-fi horror hybrid directed by A.T. White that, well, put it to you like this. On Rotten Tomatoes, the critics gave it an overwhelming approval, 90% approval rating, whereas the audience rating was 47%. And I think that the audience rating was possibly a bit too high. So the film follows, well, a young woman who has come to a small northern town to attend the funeral of her friend who has recently passed away at a young age. The film's villains, for lack of a better term, are these monsters that are not really explained very well. For supporting characters, we have a radio and a voice on the radio from a character who, it's just a radio. And the obstacles, you have to see the film to understand the obstacles because, quite frankly, we'll get into it when I get to the downside, which will be fairly soon. So as I said, this young woman comes to this small town to attend the funeral of her friend, and after attending the funeral of her friend, she wakes up the next day to find that a storm has rolled in and the town is covered with snow, and there are monsters prowling the town, killing people for no apparent reason. It has to do with some mysterious signal that is hidden on these various cassette tapes that are scattered throughout the town for some reason, and thus begins a rather unenthusiastic scavenger hunt where this young woman who doesn't really want to find the tapes starts finding the tapes, and that is largely the plot of the film, such as it is. The upside of the film is that one actress who's in it for, most of the film and is largely the only actress in the film, largely, I believe her name is Virginia Gardner. She's decent in the film, although I don't like her character much. She's, the picture of unmotivated, and that's just not interesting to watch. That's the upside. Her performance is pretty good. That's it. Everything else in the film is downside. The film is, in my opinion, not very well directed. There are a lot of things in the film that are just freaking unnecessary. Spoiler alert, there are 2 points in the movie where we actually watch this poor lady on the toilet taking a poop for no reason whatsoever. It doesn't add to the story in any way, shape, or form. We just see a woman pooping. Why? The story doesn't really lead anywhere. Apparently, because after I watched the movie, I had to go online and read the plot of the movie to understand what the hell I just saw, because good grief, the movie doesn't explain it. The movie is apparently a study of her grief, although she doesn't appear to be grieving too much. In my opinion, I have grieved in my life multiple times, and that's just not what it's like, for me anyway. But yeah, it's supposed to be a movie about grief, but if it's a movie about grief, why the monsters and the signal and stuff? Because that has nothing to do with grief. And, and if you're going to make movies about monsters, why do the grief thing? Because those two things, making a movie about grief and putting monsters in it is like making an apple pie and putting onions in it. It's just, the two don't mix in any way, shape, or form and should not be brought together. It just doesn't work, and it didn't work here, in my opinion. This was first of all, it was a fairly boring movie that was hard to get through. I was really watching the clock on this one. It wasn't entertaining. I didn't think that it was a particularly adept study of grief. It wasn't emotionally affecting for me, which is one of the best, the thing that the critics who loved it say about it. It was emotionally affecting and all kinds of stuff like that, and ethereal and whatever, and it wasn't. It was just a confusing mess that, that was putting onions in the apple pie, and it didn't work, and it left a bad taste in my mouth, and you can probably tell I'm a little pissed off that I wasted my time watching it. The movie is it's 2 stars, and the only reason why it's 2 stars is because of the performance of the young woman as this fairly unlikable character. It's really, without her performance, I would probably be giving this movie 1 star. It's really not a good movie at all. So that's it. Starfish, don't watch it, don't bother. Watch something else.